Have you ever heard of an epidemic of dancing? No, I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm talking about a real historical event where people literally danced themselves to death. This is the bizarre and terrifying story of the dancing plague of 1518. Picture this. It's July 1518. In the city of Strasbourg, part of the Holy Roman Empire. The memory of the Black Plague, which had wiped out a huge portion of Europe's population just a few decades earlier, is still fresh and raw. The city is grappling with famine, poverty, and a deep-seated, simmering fear. Life is hard, and superstition is rampant. It is in this tense, fragile environment that our story begins with a single, ordinary woman. Her name was Frau Troffea. On what seemed like a normal summer day, she walked out of her house and into the street. And then she started to dance. Not a joyful, celebratory dance, but a frantic, compulsive one. There was no music, no audience, just her twisting and twirling under the summer sun. Her husband begged her to stop, but she couldn't. Hours turned into a full day, then another. She just kept dancing. Soon, something even stranger happened. One by one, her neighbors started to join her. Within a week, there were over 30 people dancing uncontrollably in the streets of Strasbourg. Within a month, that number had swelled to around 400. The city was in a state of chaos. Imagine looking out your window and seeing hundreds of your fellow citizens, their faces contorted in agony and exhaustion, unable to stop their bodies from moving. It was a horrifying spectacle, like a macabre, citywide dance marathon with no finish lines. The city's authorities were completely baffled and terrified. They consulted local physicians who, lacking any modern medical knowledge, ruled out astrological and supernatural causes. Their diagnosis: hot blood. They believed the dancers were suffering from an overheating of the blood, and the only cure, they reasoned, was to let them dance it out. Yes, you heard that right. Their solution was more dancing. So, the city officials took the extraordinary step of facilitating the madness. They cleared out a guild hall, and even had a large wooden stage built in the open-air market to keep the dancers moving. They hired professional musicians and even paid pipers and drummers to provide a constant, relentless beat. They thought that by encouraging the dancing, they could help the afflicted sweat out the fever and exhaust the illness. It was a well-intentioned but catastrophic mistake. The non-stop movement, often under the scorching summer sun, took a brutal toll. People's feet became bloody and raw. They suffered from dehydration, strokes, and heart attacks. One by one, they began to collapse and die from sheer exhaustion. Contemporary accounts claim that at the plague's peak, as many as 15 people were dying each day. The stage meant to cure them had become a public deathbed. The music intended to heal was now the soundtrack to their demise. As the death toll mounted, the hot blood theory was abandoned. Panic gave way to a more ancient fear. This had to be the work of a higher power. Many believed it was divine punishment. The dancers were being smitten by God, or perhaps a saint, for their sins. The most commonly blamed figure was Saint Vitus, a saint who was known to curse sinners with compulsive dancing. As a result, the authorities changed their strategy from medical to spiritual. They banned music and public dancing, and instead took the remaining dancers to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, where they were made to pray for forgiveness. So, what really caused this terrifying phenomenon? To this day, historians and scientists don't have a definitive answer, but there are several compelling theories. One of the most popular scientific explanations points to ergot, a type of fungus that can grow on damp rye, which was a staple food at the time. This fungus produces a chemical that is structurally similar to LSD. Ingesting ergot-contaminated bread could cause a condition called ergotism, leading to muscle spasms, convulsions, hallucinations, and delirium. The involuntary, jerky movements described could certainly match the symptoms. However, this theory has its problems. It's difficult to explain how hundreds of people would have eaten the exact right dose to induce dancing for days on end, rather than simply dying from the poison or experiencing other symptoms. Another leading theory suggests this was a case of mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. Remember the context. The people of Strasbourg were living under extreme psychological stress from famine, disease, and poverty. Their belief system was steeped in superstition. The theory goes that this collective stress manifested physically in a shared, trance-like state. Frau Troffier's dance might have been a trigger, a psychological contagion that spread through a vulnerable population. In their minds, they truly believed they were cursed by St. Vitus, and this powerful belief took physical control of their bodies. This would explain why the dancing seemed to follow a pattern of suggestion, and why it eventually subsided when the authorities shifted focus to a spiritual cure. And of course, there's the supernatural explanation, whispered in the chronicles of the time. Was it a demonic possession on a mass scale? A curse laid upon the city by an unknown enemy? While we can't prove it for the people living through this nightmare, the idea of a malevolent, unseen force controlling their bodies was a very real and immediate terror. As mysteriously as it began, the dancing plague eventually tapered off in early September. The dancers either recovered or died, and an exhausted silence fell over Strasbourg. The event was recorded in numerous historical documents, but no final, conclusive explanation was ever given. It remains one of history's most chilling and perplexing mysteries. A time when a city was held hostage, not by an army or a disease in the way we understand it, but by a phantom rhythm that no one else could hear. So what do you think was the real cause behind the dancing plague of 1518? Was it a toxic fungus, a case of mass hysteria fueled by stress and superstition, or something else entirely? Let me know your best theory down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed diving into the strange and unexplained corners of history, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more.